Hello Aquarius, and welcome to your monthly horoscope for September for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to pick out the key features as ever, but please stay with me. I will then dive deep to give you in forensic detail all the opportunities and the odd challenge that is going to come up this month. Now we have to start with your two ruling planets of Saturn and Uranus. Saturn's your traditional ruler, and the sign of Aquarius has a duality to it. As I'm often saying, when we read magazines, Aquarians are often depicted very much in Uranian terms. You know, a bit eccentric, changeable, future orientated, very committed to friendships, like a bit of independence. That's all very Uranus. But the Saturn instinct is much more to do with stability. It's to do with honouring the past connections and traditions that are actually really important. So that duality has to coexist. And with those two rulers back in a very tense right angle, which really comes nearly to an exact point from the 2nd through to the 12th of October, the potential for tension around your individual needs and personal expression around what you want around where you live, how you live there and who with, that's really going to be a big theme this month. But of course Mercury is a planet which is exalted in the sign of Aquarius, so we have to be conscious of the progress of Mercury this month, and it is in shadow for the first 10 days, then goes retrograde in your sister air sign of Libra, the 9th house, very much to do with travel, contracts, higher education, but it inverts on the 23rd back into the sign of Virgo. And that's an area that is going to be a hot theme this month, the 8th house, which is all about transformations. Now the third major influence is the planet that rules the last decan of the sign of Aquarius, which is Venus. Venus goes through 3 zodiac signs this month, so I can't wait to tell you about that. And there are going to be some wonderful opportunities that come from that. If you are wanting to embrace more serious astrology and rise above this zodiac forecast, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can give you a roadmap that can guide you for the rest of your life, help you to identify opportunities, but also see patterns that may have made at times your life more challenging and learn how to work around these. But in my special offer of 30% off, if you order this year, I'll give you your year 2023 forecast within this package, but also the rest of 2022 free. Please see the link below. And finally, if you are new to my channel, I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. If you've already done so, thank you so much for your support. But if not, please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Thank you. So Aquarius, as September begins, so the Sun is in the sign of Virgo. Very much to do with purity, order, efficiency, and know when to discriminate around different choices that we may have. Now for you, this is house 8. House 8 is very much about, in an emotional sense, where we can go through some deep changes. It can be a time of endings, but also a time of beginnings. Now, Venus, the planet of love and affection, is going to move into house 8 on the 5th. So initially it starts this month in a very noble and a very pleasant location, the 7th house, very much in keeping with its rulership of Libra. So there can be some opportunities to relate skillfully to situations at the start of this month. And also Mercury, despite its initial shadow, is forging a superb link with Mars. Mars is in house 5, really exciting. This is your sector of self-expression, can be to do with romance, can be to do with where we show off a little bit. So your sex appeal is definitely high at the start of this month with Mars in the 5th and Venus in the 7th. But Mercury in its shadow in the sign of Libra, which is in your 9th house, very much to do with travel. That's linking brilliantly well to Mars. So if there's something you want to express with conviction and passion, whether it's a message of affection for someone or it's wanting to get together with a group of friends and have a more sociable time of it, I think that's definitely possible at the start of this month. But of course, House 9, where Mercury is, can be about travel. And as Mercury goes into its retrograde on the 10th, the potential for glitches can be increased. But I just want to look at that transition of Venus into Virgo, because technically Venus is not at its best in Virgo, but for you, this is where Venus gets hot and potentially rather passionate. So if there is someone you want to be more committed to, more invested with, whether it's a business partner, a friend, or perhaps in a romantic scenario, then Venus can definitely be very rewarding through this transition. It can also trigger some financial fortune. So if you're waiting for some news on an insurance payout, a pension matter, perhaps a property matter, or even some kind of legacy, the point from the 5th through to the 29th could bring some good news. So that's exciting. Now, obviously, because there is that clash between your two rulers at the start of this month and throughout this month into October, trying to find the balance between what works for you as an individual and where you feel most emotionally secure can continue to be something of a theme. But if you are thinking of actually moving, I feel this month can be quite encouraging, because the Sun forges a terrific link with Uranus in week 2. So although Uranus can be a very restless energy and has been since 2019, it was for those 5 months in 2018 for early born Aquarius people. It's probably been a lot of turbulence since then, but since 2019 and more so since then for more Aquarius people, a lot of potential restlessness, change, feeling a sense of restriction on where you're living, wanting to break out, changing things, perhaps even switchbacks, quite a lot of unpredictability. But that link between Uranus and the Sun is very enabling, and that part of your nature, which can be very future orientated, can embrace that more Saturnian side, which can be actually very business-like. And so if some kind of change can come about which sees a physical improvement in your situation, your ability to think outside the box and be, a little bit more imaginative and innovative than some people, could see you move something forwards quite significantly in week 2. But from the 10th through to the 15th, it is true, concurrent to that very positive link with Uranus, that the Sun is in a quincunx with Saturn in your own sign. So balancing what you need as an individual, house 1, with where you need to be invested in others, house 8, can be a bit tricky. However, the full moon, which occurs on the 10th, gives you an opportunity to try to get a balance between what you need for your everyday world in terms of the practical side of things. That could be around everyday spending, where the moon is located, and being conscious of how that plays out in the long term or how it affects others. And Uranus intersects with that full moon as well. But of course, on the same day, Mercury slams on the brakes, but it was slowing down in shadow before anyway. So if you are talking about a contractual issue from the 10th through to the 23rd, an enormous amount of precision needs to be invested in your decision making, because one of the downsides of Mercury in retrograde in Libra could be that you could find yourself weighing up the pros and cons to the point that it gets very difficult to actually make a binding decision. And that potential for confusion could be enhanced in week 3 as Neptune is opposed by the Sun. So if there have been some discussions ongoing, trying to sort of get an idea of how you can use your budget effectively, or use your energy or your emotional investment in a balanced way. I think once the Sun goes opposite Neptune, that could create a little bit of confusion or uncertainty along with the Mercury retrograde. However, it's true to say that from the 17th through to the 22nd, Uranus forges a very enlivening link with Venus. And Venus in House 8, you know, it can really bring good things your way. So a surprise development, perhaps it is around a family matter at an emotional level, it could be around a physical issue to do with a property, but a surprise breakthrough could delight. Now from the 16th through to the 22nd, the Sun forges a really powerful link with Pluto. Pluto's been hard going for Aquarius people since 2008 because it's been moving through a very psychological area. Pluto tends to be quite secretive in a way in terms of how people use Pluto to gain power, but also Pluto can in some ways force change into our situations when we're not ready for it, or we can be very open to Plutonian change, and that gets very exciting if we accept that life is always shifting and we go with it, which can be difficult for a fixed sign like Aquarius. Then it becomes a much easier process. But I think for a lot of Aquarius people since 2008, it has at times felt that a lot of opposition has manifested, but not necessarily in an upfront, seeable way. It's almost like being very psychological opposition, unspoken, a kind of atmospheric difficulty to see really how people felt, which has been very undermining in terms of confidence and morale. But the angle between the Sun and Pluto suggests that if you're open to that psychological change, you can reach a point where you really can see how far you've come since 2008, but also see how your physical world has really evolved during that period of time too. And you may have actually made a huge amount of progress that you're not recognizing. And Pluto is asking you and I, as an Aquarius, to dig deeper to see in greater clarity the progress that's been made. The 8th house, remember, is accepting that change is an inevitable part of life. So if you can submit yourself to the process, that can be a very powerful 5-day period. Then on the 23rd, a standout part of the month really for many of us, but particularly for air signs, the autumnal equinox presages the Sun moving into Libra. We have the 3rd cardinal quarter, and it's all about relationships. But for you, it's relationships that are to do with expansion and can be to do with travel or higher education. So look out for those in the following 13 weeks. A cazimi between the Sun and the retreating Mercury briefly on that day could be very good around a contractual matter despite the retrograde. But then Mercury inverts into Virgo. If you do need to think very, very deeply about longer term finance, and of course a lot of us at the moment are having to flex and deal with the fact that the cost of living has shot up, then Mercury's analytical skills can help, particularly when it links so very, very adroitly with Pluto itself through the last week of this month. But also Mars, which is in a fantastic location for you right through to next March the 25th, it forges in the last 10 days a very helpful angle to Saturn. So where you've worked hard, been diligent, grown, evolved, let go, recognize that life isn't a perfect process, embrace the things that you're really good at, that you have enthusiasm for, something you manifest in this last 7 days of the month can be absolutely cracking, and you really can feel that you're making progress, particularly on the new moon, which occurs on the 25th, which forges an opposition with Jupiter. Your words over the next month can carry a much greater vibrational energy when it comes to ideas. If you are someone who's interested in the spiritual themes, or you are someone who writes, or you're interested in technology or media of any kind, whether it's just having fun on TikTok or something that's more profound, you may see TikTok as very profound. Nothing wrong with that. But something about articulating your message is given an enormous platform from that particular new moon. And also with Venus moving into the 9th house, the third transition of this month on the 29th, that's also a real sweet spot, because Venus in the 9th house is at home, but it's also revealing truth. And truth is very important to Aquarius people, even if, you know, at times it may be difficult to match your reality, my reality, to how other people see life. For us, having a sense of truthfulness around what we do is really what is about reaching into that more baptismal energy of Aquarius, which is about higher truth, it's about higher power, it's about baptism essentially. So a great opportunity to do that at the end of this month and into October. But Mars is a massive part of the story this month, and as you can see, very supportive to the retreat in Saturn the last 10 days, very supportive to the slowing down Mercury in the first 10 days. And it is true that that Saturn square Uranus is potentially going to be tough. But remember this is the 4th time this has really happened, this aspect. And what happens with tough aspects is that we actually adapt to them. We get more skilled at dealing with their frustrating patterns. So I feel this time round we've been much better equipped to deal with things. So essentially not everything in terms of personal desire against getting that perfect emotional life is necessarily going to go exactly to plan and at the pace we want. So if we just accept that, it's much more likely to happen in a way that suits us. But if we're frustrated by it and push back, that's more challenging. But I think balancing the ins and outgoings of the financial side of things, the ins and outgoings of the emotional commitment to your foundations, the 2nd house where the full moon is, and Neptune, and where you connect to others, that's a big theme. But all the potential breakthroughs can build up towards the end of this month, despite Mercury's retrograde, which is not something that can be easy, but despite that, it does give us the opportunity to revisit, rejig, renew, repair. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure being with you. Take care, good luck, and goodbye.